Welcome to Allies or Enemies. This time we are talking about Dwellings of Eldervale. Designed by Laurie, Dwellings is a 1 to 5 player game that runs roughly 30 minutes per player and has the most Cones of Dunshire sounding name of any game on the market. Dwellings of Eldervale is kind of worker placement, kind of area control, kind of resource and card management, and the only game I know that involves turning people into houses using roof hats. It is also really pricey, and can be really, really pricey if you want noises, which we didn't, so we'll be looking here at the middle pricey, but still too pricey version of the game. Enough of me saying the word pricey. Let's look at how it plays.
Dwellings of Eldervale looks a lot more complex than it actually is. There are a lot of moving parts, but they generally work together in obvious ways. Each turn starts with one of two things. You will either place a worker or take back your workers. When you place a worker, you do what the tile says, either gaining a treasure or taking a special action. When you bring your workers back, you use the cards in your tableau to take actions like gaining resources, recruiting workers, including dragons and wizards, or turning people into houses. When you gain cards or dwellings, you move up the element tracks. When your movement lands you either on a space with someone else or in range of a monster, you fight. Fighting is super simple. You get 1 to 6 dice based on who's fighting and where. You roll those dice, and the highest number wins. At the end of the game, you add up points from element tracks and their corresponding cards and dwellings, as well as any scoring cards you have, and you decide who rules the kingdom. There is a bit more going on than that, but that is the basic bones of it.
Before we get into the other aspects, we want to talk about what all is in this box, because there is quite a bit. The deluxe version has 16 factions in 8 colors, 8 monsters, 8 element decks, a bunch of corresponding tiles, a big boss monster, a secret mercenary, search your box, bits for solo mode, a deck of magic cards, and a bunch of other stuff. If you opt for the standard version, you get all the same stuff, but with standee and cardboard resources. If you get the legendary box, you get 8 extra alternate monsters, plus sound bases, which anyone that bought the 2000 Star Wars figures will tell you is not a plus. It is all excellent quality, especially the fancy meeples and the monsters. The quality does live up to the price, but it is very expensive, which will be a turn-off for a lot of folks. Though there still are a couple of qualms. We didn't love the card quality and we opted to sleeve them. And the biggie is that the character boards don't fit back into their boxes without getting dinged on the sides, which will bother a lot of people.
All of that stuff we just talked about does change the game up quite a bit from play to play. The different factions all have a couple of special powers that can change whether you're an attacker or a card collector or a resource gatherer, etc. And the monsters all have slightly different abilities. Neither of these will make a huge impact, but they do provide some variety. There are also a couple of extra modules you can add, such as the mercenary, the oracle, or a kind of final boss monster, which in the regular version will be the mother of dragons. The modular board, market cards, and magic deck will all make a difference as well, especially the market cards, which can have hugely powerful abilities. There is still the sameness of placing and returning, and the battle system is almost famously light, but there's enough variability here that you won't get bored quickly.
Dwellings of Eldervale works for all player counts from 1 to 5, but the game does feel different at different counts. With 3 to 5, there's a fairly equal mix of engine building and area control, with plenty of enemies waiting to stab you in the back, or front, or side. And even though tiles are added depending on player count, it feels like a lot less space. With 2 players, most of your conflict tends to be against the monsters, as there are generally enough tiles for everyone, and obviously fewer possible attackers. It will depend a bit on faction, but generally 2 players is more of a race for tiles, cards, monsters, and to build the better engine, while 3 to 5 is still a race, but with a lot more pit stops in the underworld. The solo game is different again. The bot, aka Ghost, is controlled by a deck of cards, the order of which can really decide the pace. The cards can add a bit of a puzzle aspect as you try to plan ahead, but there is enough randomization that all of that planning often goes for naught. It's a good system and a solid challenge.
Dwellings is a huge game in every way. The box will fill your shelves, the price will cut a good swath out of your bank account, and the stuff will fill your table, and more importantly, the game itself feels epic. This is kind of Scythe mixed with a bit of Skyrim. The guts of it are worker placement, area control, and resource management, but the heart is all monsters and magic. That said, there are some elements that will vary based from player to player. It is a bit more Euro than some might be expecting from a game with big plastic monsters. Mechanics take precedence and storytelling is mostly absent. The simple combat system may not work for everyone, and the Kickstarter style levels of stuff will turn some off. However, as long as none of that is a deal breaker, this is a heck of a game with a lot of variability, surprisingly easy to learn rules, and big potential to be a table regular for a lot of folks. This sits firmly in our top few of 2020. And that is it. Have you played Dwellings? What did you think? And also, what were your other favorite games from last year? Please let us know in the comments, and please do like and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you all next time for another game.